Armstrong, and this is the last in the series of Pointless, the quiz show where the lowest scorers are the biggest winners. To stay in the game, our contestants need to score as few points as possible. And how do they score as few points as possible? Well, they just need to come up with the most obscure answers they can. We've asked all our questions on Pointless to 100 people before the show. All our contestants need to do is find those little-known answers that as few of our 100 people gave as possible. So, for example, we gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many Michael Jackson top 40 singles as they could, and we found out that 70 of them said Thriller, an obvious answer that would score you a horribly high 70 points. However, only 21 of them said Ben, a less obvious song that would score you a respectably low 21 points. Now, occasionally there are even some answers that none of our 100 people could name. So, for example, none of them said They Don't Care About Us. So that would have been a truly pointless Michael Jackson single. And that would score you absolutely nothing. And that's just what we want. If we find any of those, then we will add £250 to today's jackpot. Before we go any further, let's meet today's players. Welcome, Carolyn and Beth. You are our first pair on the show. How do you two know each other?
We go to university together, and we're about to go into our final year. I do English, and Beth's a theologian.
Very good. Where at university?
Oxford.
Oxford. Well, best of luck with your final year, and more importantly, best of luck with this afternoon's show.
Thank you.
Jane and Anne-Marie, you are our second pair today. Welcome to the show. How do you two know each other?
We have the dubious honour of working together in financial services.
Whereabouts do you work in financial services?
In Altrincham in Cheshire.
Altrincham in Cheshire. Very good. Well, a warm welcome to you on the show. I hope you do well. Nia and Tori, welcome back. Today is your final chance to reach the final. Can you remind us where you are from and how you know each other?
We both live in Liverpool, and it's my sister, my little sister, so it's quite nice to be here today with her. So
best of luck for this afternoon. Welcome to our fourth pair. We welcome Phil and Chris. How do you two know each other?
We've known each other for a few years now. Chris is my future brother-in-law.
Very good indeed. General knowledge, something you share?
Yeah, kind of. He's more competitive than me, though, so...
Oh, that's good. A bit of a competitive edge. I think that'll help. And finally, we've got Neil and David. Welcome back. Today is your last chance to reach the final. Remind us how you two know each other.
Well, we've known each other for 8 years. We're both from Bolton, and we write together quite a bit.
You write together?
Yeah.
Very good. What do you write?
Poetry and short stories, but we're working together on something at the moment. That's trying to do like a sitcom-y type thing.
Sitcom?
Trying.
Set in a quiz show, quite possibly.
Absolutely.
If you need a part for the presenter, I don't know if... Anyway, we can discuss this later. There is one final person I must introduce to you. He is the man in the know, the man with all the pointless facts and figures. He is, of course, my pointless friend, Richard. So then, end of the series, Richard.
I know, sad day.
Sad day.
As always, I've got all the answers for today's show right here. I've got all the questions for today's show right here. At the end of each question, I'll go through all the pointless answers. Those are the things that no one in our 100 said. If you're playing along at home, you'll see how you've done there, see if you've got a pointless answer. I'll also go through the obvious answers, the things that everybody says, you know, the first thing everyone writes down when they're making their long list. You don't know any of the questions on today's show, any of the answers on today's show. Best of luck to you all. And for the final time this series, best of luck to everyone at home.
The jackpot hasn't been won in the last 6 shows, so it rolls over. And today's jackpot total is an unbelievable £8,250. Just obscene. It's the last show in the series, so we really are hoping that one of our pairs will be taking it home today. And remember, if you find some pointless answers along the way, each one of those will add £250 to that amount. Let's play Pointless. In the first round, each of you must give me one answer, and you cannot confer with your partner. You will score 1 point for every one of the 100 people that gave that same answer. And remember, this is pointless, so you are trying to find the least well-known answers and score the fewest points. Now, if anyone gives me an incorrect answer, they will score the maximum of 100 points, so do please be careful. If you do give me an incorrect answer, this will happen. And you really don't want to see that. So at the end of the round, your combined score will be totalled up, and the highest scoring pair will be eliminated. Obviously, only 2 pairs can make it through to our head-to-head semi-final, so the pressure is really on. OK, our first category is actors. Can you all decide in your pairs who's going to go first and who's going to go second? And whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many feature films starring Brad Pitt as they could. Richard, can you elaborate?
Yeah, we're looking for feature films made for cinema release for which Brad Pitt receives an acting credit. A few things we're not looking for. We're not looking for short films, TV films, any films that have yet to be released. We're not looking for films where he's played himself, but voice performances do count. There are 35 Brad Pitt movies to choose from.
OK, thanks, Richard. Right, Carolyn and Beth, before the show you all drew lots, and today it turns out you will be starting us off. So, Carolyn, we are looking for a lovely, obscure feature film starring Brad Pitt.
The Mexican?
The Mexican. Let's see how many of our 100 people said The Mexican. It's correct. Down it goes. It's good. It's very good. Very good indeed. That means only 4 of our 100 people said The Mexican. That kicks Carolyn and Beth off with an admirably low score of 4. Richard, The Mexican.
Yeah, 2001. He stars alongside Julia Roberts. Good answer.
Very good. On to our next pair. Jane.
Yes.
What are you going to give me? I want a feature film starring Brad Pitt, preferably one no one has thought of.
Fight Club.
OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said Fight Club. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. That means 22 of our 100 people said Fight Club. Not a bad answer. On to our next pair. Tori.
OK, I don't know how good it is, but I'm going to say 7.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said 7. It's good. That means 12 of our 100 people said 7. OK, Phil, we are looking for feature films starring Brad Pitt.
Thelma and Louise.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Thelma and Louise. It's another good one. That gives Phil and Chris a score of 12. OK, Neil. A nice, obscure Brad Pitt film.
Right, trying to think of obscure ones. Go for 7 Years in Tibet.
I like that. Let's see how many of our 100 people said 7 Years in Tibet. Well, it's correct. That's a fantastic answer. That means only 3 of our 100 people said 7 Years in Tibet. Well, we're halfway through the round. Let's take a look at the scoreboard and see how we're doing. Well, it's a pretty tight bunch, I'd say, there. Obviously, Jane and Anne-Marie are out in front there but with 22. Bit of a margin between you and the rest. Neil and David on 3, looking very, very safe there. Keep up that low scoring and you'll definitely be through to the next round. OK, we're going to come back up the line. Can the second players please take their places at the podium? OK, David, we are looking for feature films starring Brad Pitt. You are our low scorers on 3. If you want to avoid becoming the high scorers and overtaking Anne-Marie and Jane on 22, you want to be scoring 18 or less with this answer. There is your red line. There's the safety line. If you come below that line, you are through to the next round. If you are above that red line, you become the high scorers and risk being eliminated.
I'm going to go for True Romance.
True Romance. Very good. Let's see how many of our 100 people said True Romance. Oh, it's good. You're through. Fantastic. That means only 2 of our 100 people said True Romance. That brings your total up to a very impressive low of 5. Very good indeed. On to our next pair. Chris, you are on 12. Just to remind you, our high scorers are Anne-Marie and Jane on 22. You have to score 9 or less if you want to avoid overtaking them and becoming the new high scorer.
I'm going to have to say Meet Joe Black.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said meet Joe Black. It's not bad. It's good. It's just not quite good enough to see you safely through. That means 12 of our 100 people said meet Joe Black. That takes your total up to 24. You are our new high scorers, but the round is not over yet by a long chalk. OK, Nia, you are on 12. To avoid overtaking Chris and Phil, who are our new high scorers, you have to score 11 or less with this answer.
I'm going to go with Legends of the Fall.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Legends of the Fall. It's falling. It's good enough. That means 4 of our 100 people said Legends of the Fall. That takes your total up to 16. You are through to the next round. Well done. Now then, Anne-Marie, you were our high scorers at the halfway point. You are on 22. Phil and Chris are on 24. You really want to be scoring 1 or less with this to avoid becoming the new high scorers. I'm looking for a Brad Pitt film.
The one that I'm going to have to go for that I hope is a low answer is Interview with the Vampire.
OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said Interview with a Vampire. It's not bad. Great news for Phil and Chris. That means they are now definitely through to the next round. But that's bad news for you, Jane and Anne-Marie, as you are now our high scorers and could be leaving. But the round's not over yet. Beth, you are currently on 4. You have to score 21 or less with this answer, otherwise you will be off the show.
It's either Johnny Suede, The Image, or Across the Tracks. I don't know if it's a short film or not. Johnny Suede.
OK, this has to score you 21 or less. There is your red line. If you come below that red line, you are sailing through to the next round. Above that red line, and you are off the show. Simple as that. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Johnny Suede. That's correct. You're through. And it's that means that none of our 100 people said Johnny Suede, and that adds £250 to today's jackpot, taking the total up to an embarrassing £8,500. Very good indeed. So that's the end of round 1, and the losing pair with the highest score, I'm afraid, is Jane and Anne-Marie. Bad luck.
Never mind.
26 is a really low score. I mean, that must be one of the lowest scores that anyone's ever been eliminated on. Richard, what answers should they have gone for?
Well, there were 7 pointless answers. Beth, as you said, Across the Tracks was another one of your choices. That would have been a pointless answer. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, he's got a very small part in. Cool World, Johnny Suede. Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, and The Dark Side of the Sun. They were all pointless. Let's take a look at the most obvious ones. These are the worst things you could have said. Ocean's 12 would have got you 31 points. Ocean's 11 would have got you 37. And just because they didn't make an Ocean's 10, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is the worst answer of all.
Thanks very much. Jane and Anne-Marie, you just didn't have that pointless Brad Pitt knowledge you needed to win, so I'm afraid we have to say goodbye to you. But you have been fantastic contestants. Thanks so much for playing. Thank you. For the remaining 4 pairs, though, it's time for round 2. OK, guys, the round 2 category is currency. Right, can you decide in your pairs who's going to go first and who's going to go second? And whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. Right, remember, Pointless is all about scoring the fewest points. You need to rack your brains and find those obscure and unheard of answers that you think the fewest of our 100 people said. With that in mind, let's find out what the question is. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many EU currencies replaced by the euro as they could. Can you be any more specific, Richard?
Yeah, we're looking for the currency of any EU country that's been replaced by the euro since it was introduced in 1999. So we need the name of a country and the currency. So, for example, instead of saying the pound, you would say the British pound. There are 16 currencies that have been replaced by the euro.
Carolyn, you are first up. What are you going to say? I want an EU currency replaced by the euro.
I'm going to have to play it safe and say the German Deutschmark.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said the German Deutschmark. Ooh. That means 61 of our 100 people said the German Deutschmark. That's a pretty uncomfortably high score to kick us off with. On to Nia. Nia, what are you going to give me?
Italian lira.
Italian lira. OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said the Italian lira. Well, it's better than the Deutschmark. That means 26 of our 100 people said the Italian lira. On to Phil. Phil, a European currency replaced by the euro.
The only one I can think of is the Spanish peseta.
OK, let's see how the Spanish peseta did. That means 60 of our 100 people said the Spanish peseta. OK, David, what are you going to give me?
The Maltese lira.
The Maltese lira. Let's see how many of our 100 people said the Maltese lira. It's good. Down it goes. Oh, well done, David. Another fabulous low score. That means only 2 of our 100 people said the Maltese lira. Well, we are halfway through the round. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Right out ahead, Neil and David with a fantastic low score of 2. Keep up that low scoring, Neil, and you will definitely be through to the next round. Phil and Chris on 60, Carolyn and Beth on 61. Not much to separate you there. Everything to play for, I would say, in the second part of the round. OK, we're going to come back up the line. Will the second players please take their places at the podium? OK, Neil. You are currently on 2. Our high scorers are Beth and Carolyn on 61. You want to be scoring 58 or less to avoid overtaking their high score. There's your red line, below that red line, and you are definitely through to the next round. We're looking for a really obscure EU currency replaced by the euro.
I'm not sure if it's that obscure, because it's only our neighbour, but the Irish punt.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said the Irish punt. It's good, you're through. That means 36 of our 100 people said the Irish punt. That takes your score up to 38. OK, Chris. You are currently on 60. You're only 1 point behind our point leaders, Beth and Carolyn. That's an uncomfortable place to be. You really have to score a pointless answer here if you want to avoid becoming the new high scorers.
The Cypriot pound. I think that's wrong.
The Cypriot pound. It may not be wrong. If it is wrong, it will score you the maximum of 100 points. That'll be great news for Beth and Carolyn. Let's see how many of our 100 people said the Cypriot pound. It's correct. This could be a fantastic answer. Look at this. Down it goes. Very good indeed. That means only 7 of our 100 people said the Cypriot pound. That takes your total up to 67. You are now our point leaders, which means you are vulnerable, but it's not over yet. On to Tori. Tori, you are currently on 26. You have to score 40 or less with this answer to avoid overtaking Chris and Phil, who are our point leaders at the moment on 67.
I can only think of the drachma.
You need to give me a country as well.
Denmark. Oh.
The Denmark drachma is what you are saying. Let's see how many of our 100 people said the Denmark drachma. Dear Tori, unfortunately, that is a wrong answer, which means you score the maximum of 100 points. Your total is now 126. You are now the highest scorers and in danger of being eliminated at the end of this round. OK, Beth and Carolyn. Beth, you are currently on 61. You have to score 64 or less to stay in the game. If you score less than 64, you are through to the next round. If you score more, you are off the show. What are you going to give me? I want an EU currency that was replaced by the euro.
Unfortunately, I think this might be the end of our little journey, as I can only say the French franc, and I know that's going to be high.
The French franc?
Yeah.
Suddenly I see Tori looking happy again. There's your red line. If the French franc comes anything above that red line, you are off the show, I'm afraid. Let's see how many of our 100 people said the French franc. Oh, you've done it! Wow. That means only 45 of our 100 people said the French franc. That takes your total up to 106. That means you are through to the next round, but that's terrible news for Tori and Nia. They, on 126, are the high scorers at the end of round 2, and I'm afraid that means you are leaving the show. Tell me now the pressure's off. What country is the drachma?
I think it might. I don't know.
Oh, bad luck. Well, Richard, what answers should they have given?
Yeah, the Greek drachma would have got you 16 points. Would have seen you safely through to the next round. There was 1 pointless answer, the Slovak koruna. Luxembourg franc got 1 point. There's a lot of francs around. The Slovenia tolar. 2 people knew that. If we look at the worst answers you could have given, some of these will be very, very familiar. The French franc. Beth gave that. Phil, you gave us the Spanish peseta, and that was second. The worst answer of all was the Deutschmark, the German mark.
Very good. Thanks, Rich. Nia and Tori, you just didn't have that pointless currency knowledge you needed to get through, so I'm afraid we have to say goodbye. But you have been fantastic contestants. Thanks so much. For the remaining 3 pairs, though, it's time for round 3. Now, obviously only 2 pairs make it through to our head-to-head, so this is your final chance. All of you need to find some low-scoring answers to stay in the game. The round 3 category is television. So who's going to go first, who's going to go second? And whoever's going first, please step up to the podium. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many Blue Peter pets as they could. Blue Peter pets. Richard, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, one for all ages, this one. We're looking for any of the regular pets that have featured on Blue Peter since it first began. There are 22 Blue Peter pets, or there have been 22 Blue Peter pets.
Remember, you need to score the fewest points. So you need to give the answer that the fewest of our 100 people said. OK, Carolyn, as ever, you're kicking us off. I want a Blue Peter pet.
I'm going to risk it and say Shelley, the tortoise thing.
Shelley.
Yeah.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Shelley. It's good. It could be very good. Look at that! So nearly pointless. That means only 1 of our 100 people said Shelley. Richard, Shelley, I'm guessing named after his carapace rather than Percy Bysshe. The poet, I don't know.
Yes, named after her carapace, in fact. I know, how embarrassing. To wrongly sex a tortoise on national TV.
OK, on to our next pair. Phil, we are looking for Blue Peter pets.
Carrie.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Carrie. It's good. It's very good. That means 6 of our 100 people said Carrie cat. OK, Neil.
I believe there was a tortoise called George, and they discovered later it was a girl.
You're going to go for George. Let's see how many of our 100 people said George. It's good. It could be very good. Look at this. Down it goes. Look at that. Oh, very good indeed. That means 5 of our 100 people said George. Richard.
If we just clear one thing up, Neil, you said that George was misnamed and was female. This is the second instance of people getting the sex of tortoises wrong. George was always a male. George was all male tortoise.
Well, let's have a quick look at the scoreboard. We're halfway through the round. I mean, there's everything to play for here. They're all very, very low scores. Carolyn and Beth, I have to say, you're looking particularly strong on that low score of 1. Keep up that low scoring and you should definitely be through to the next round. The other two pairs, not really much between you, I have to say. OK, we're going to come back down the line. Can the second players please take their places at the podium? OK, David, we are looking for Blue Peter pets. You are currently on 5. To avoid becoming the high scorers, you have to come up with a pointless answer here.
Well, I'm going for one that I can remember, and it's Orky.
Okie. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Okie. It's good. It's nice and low. It's perfectly low. Look at that. That means only 6 of our 100 people said Okie. That takes your score up to 11. That does mean you are currently the high scorers, but anything could happen in the next couple of goes. Rich, Okie.
Yeah, Okie, of course, is one of a pair of cats with Carrie. Carrie Okie. That was the... that's what they did there back in the Diane Louise Jordan days. They retired in 2004.
Fantastic. OK, Chris, your turn now. You are currently on 6. You want to be scoring 4 or less with this to avoid becoming the high scorers and risking elimination. We are looking for Blue Peter pets.
I've never heard of any of them, and I don't know any, so I'm just going to have to guess and say Rex, a dog.
Rex. You never know. They've had Carrie and they've had Okie. They clearly could go for anything. How many of our 100 people said Rex? I'm so sorry. Sadly, that is a wrong answer. They never called a dog, or anything for that matter, Rex. You are now at 106, and you are leaving the show at the end of this round. Beth and Carolyn, even if you score the maximum of 100 points, there's no way you can overtake that. So why not have a punt on a pointless? See if you can add another £250 to our jackpot.
I think there's one called Molly or Holly, and I'll probably go with Molly.
You're going to go with Molly?
A dog as a guess.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Molly. Ooh. Bad luck. Unfortunately, that is a wrong answer, which means you score the maximum of 100 points. That takes your score up to 101. So at the end of round 3, the losing pair with the highest score, I'm afraid, is Phil and Chris. Phil, you're a little bit upset that Chris didn't have a bit more Blue Peter know-how there?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know much myself, but, you know, when Okie was said, I was just like, oh, that's it.
Oh, dear.
We've gone.
Dear, oh, dear. Richard, what should they have said if they'd wanted to stay in the game?
Unbelievably, no pointless answers at all. Every single Blue Peter pet got some sort of mention. We'll take a little look at the most obscure things you could have said. Shelley, we've already had, Shelley the tortoise. Smudge and socks. We'll take a look at the most obvious answers. In third, it was Goldie. Ah, Goldie. And then it was Petra. And who else at the top of the list? Anybody? Shep. Shep. There he is.
Thanks, Richard. Phil and Chris, you just didn't have that pointless Blue Peter knowledge, sadly, that you needed to get through, so I'm afraid we have to say goodbye, but it has been fantastic having you. You've been great contestants. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
But for the remaining 2 pairs, things are about to get even more exciting as we enter the head-to-head. Well done, Neil, David, Carolyn and Beth. You've made it through to the head-to-head. Now, obviously, only one pair can make it through to today's final and play for the final jackpot of the series, which currently stands, would you believe it, at £8,500. Someone's got to win that. OK, here's how the head-to-head works. You are now allowed to confer. Each team will take turns to give me an answer, and you'll each have an equal number of turns. The first team that accumulates more than 100 points, or the team that goes over 100 by the most, will lose. So, as always, to stay in the game, you want to come up with those facts everyone else forgets and score the fewest points possible. Neil and David, you performed best over the first 3 rounds, so not only do you get to decide whether or not you go first, you also get to choose our topic. And your choice this afternoon is between sports venues and the Americas.
I'm taking Neil's advice here. Sports venues.
You're going to go with sports venues. Would you like to go first or second?
First.
Sports venues, and you're going first. Let's play Pointless. We gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many Premier League football grounds as they could. Richard.
Yeah, we're looking for any stadium that's the home ground of one of the 20 teams in the 2009-2010 English Premiership.
OK, there you are. Now, remember, you don't want to go over 100. You want to score the lowest number of points each time. What are those Premiership football grounds that nobody else could remember? OK, Neil and David, you wanted to go first. So first you go.
I've got to go with my own team. It's a Reebok Stadium.
OK, let's see how many of our 100 people said the Reebok Stadium. Down it goes. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. Look at that. That means only 8 of our 100 people said the Reebok Stadium. After your first answer, your score is 8. Carolyn and Beth.
We're going to have to play it safe and go with Stamford Bridge.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Stamford Bridge. It's a correct answer. Not bad. That means 32 of our 100 people said Stamford Bridge. You've each given me one answer, and your scores are now 32 to Carolyn and Beth, and 8 to Neil and David. Now, Neil and David, you need to be careful now, because your next answer could feasibly take you over 100 points, and that could risk your place in the final. To avoid going over 100, you have to give me an answer that will score 92 points or less. Here is the red safety line. If you come below that red safety line, you avoid going over 100.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Upton Park.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Upton Park. It's good. It's very good. Look at that. That means only 7 of our 100 people said Upton Park. That takes your score up to an impressively low 15 after your second answer. Carolyn and Beth, you are currently on 32. You need to score 68 or less to stay in the game.
OK, we're out because we're going to have to say Old Trafford.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said Old Trafford. Oh, you live on. That means 59 of our 100 people said Old Trafford. That takes your score after your second answer up to 91. Neil and David, you are currently on 15. To avoid going over 100, you need to score 85 or less.
Well, we'll go the opposite one. We'll go for Eastlands.
Eastlands. Let's see how many of our 100 people said Eastlands. It's good. And down it goes. Very good. That means 18 of our 100 people said Eastlands. That takes your total up to 33. Richard.
Yeah, Eastlands is also famously known as the City of Manchester Stadium. It's Man City's ground.
OK, Carolyn and Beth, you are currently on 91. You have to score 9 or less with this answer to stay in the game. Anything over that, and the game is over for you. You will not be in the final.
We're going to say Majeski Stadium for Reading.
Let's see how many of our 100 people said the Majeski Stadium. I'm afraid that is an incorrect answer. So you score the maximum of 100 points. That takes your total to 191. You've had 3 turns each, and Carolyn and Beth, I'm afraid you have gone over 100 points, and that means you are off the show. That was a really tough category for you, you know, but you fronted it out.
We came with nothing, so we leave with nothing, so it's all good.
Would you rather they'd gone for the Americas? Would that have been a better category?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they chose well, and
Yeah,
they're
well
really
played.
difficult players, so
Yeah.
we're just happy to get this far.
The best team won.
Oh, well done. Well, Richard, what should they have said if they'd wanted to stay in the game?
There were no pointless answers at all, actually, but we can take a look at the most obscure answers. Bottom of the list, Portsmouth, Fratton Park. the DW Stadium, which is used to be the JJB Stadium, Wigan's ground, and the Britannia Stadium, Stoke Stadium. Let's take a look at the most obvious of all. Beth and Carolyn, you haven't used all of these up, which is good. Third, it was Anfield, home of Liverpool. The second most obvious answer was the Emirates, the home of Arsenal. And Caroline and Beth, you gave us the most obvious answer of all, Old Trafford.
Thanks very much, Rich. Carolyn and Beth, you've made it all the way to the head-to-head, but I'm afraid you just didn't have that pointless football knowledge you needed to win. So we have to say goodbye to you, but you have been fantastic contestants. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. But for Neil and David, it's time for our pointless final. So congratulations, Neil and David. You've fought off all the competition and you've won the coveted Pointless Trophy. Now, though, you've got a chance to win our Pointless Jackpot. At the end of today's show and at the end of the series, the jackpot stands at an impressive £8,500. OK, listen very carefully. The rules are simple. To win the money, all you have to do is find a pointless answer that none of our 100 people could think of. Now, we've had one pointless answer on the show today. Let's just hope you can find one more. First, though, you've got to choose a category. Here are your three choices. You can go for the Turner Prize, World Figures, or Famous Bridges.
Should we go for World Figures?
World Figures.
It's World Figures.
Yep.
Good luck. So, we gave 100 people 100 seconds to name as many people named Person of the Year by Time magazine as they could. Richard.
Time is the weekly American magazine that once a year honours a man, a woman or an idea that, in its words, for better or worse, has most influenced the events of the preceding year. OK. You now have up to 1 minute to come up with 3 answers. All you need to win that £8,500 is for just one of those answers to be pointless. OK, your 60 seconds start now.
Yeah, I'm almost convinced that Hitler was named it.
Hitler?
I'm sure he was. Bizarrely as that sounds, I'm sure he was. What are you saying, Einstein?
So you're thinking of Neil Armstrong?
Neil Armstrong.
Something that came out, though. What about
JFK? Possibly.
Who did? Chemotherapy, some kind of breakthrough medicine.
30 seconds.
I'm sure Hitler.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sure he famously was. Einstein must have been. What were we going to follow for? Einstein, Gates, Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, well. You're not going Hitler.
No, Einstein and Hitler would put me on there, aren't we?
Right.
We'll go for Einstein.
And your time is up. OK, which 3 answers are you going to give me?
Right. We'll go for JFK, Albert Einstein, and purely because of me probably thinking entirely wrong, Adolf Hitler.
Let's put those answers up on the board. We have John F. Kennedy, Albert Einstein, and Adolf Hitler. These are your 3 shots at the jackpot of £8,500. Just one of them has to be pointless. OK, let's put your first one up. John F. Kennedy. Let's see how many of our 100 people said John F. Kennedy. I mean, you're quite confident he was probably Person of the Year.
Pretty sure it was, yeah.
This for £8,500. Let's see how many of our 100 people said John F. Kennedy. It's correct. Down it goes. This for £8,500. Oh, it's good. Down it goes. 3. That means 3 of our 100 people said John F. Kennedy. So unfortunately, that is not a pointless answer. It was close, though. You only have 2 more chances to win today's jackpot. We are looking for people named Person of the Year by Time magazine. We have to hope that none of our 100 people said your next answer. This has to be a pointless answer. We have to hope that none of our 100 people got Albert Einstein. Otherwise, you've wasted your second chance to win £8,500. Okay, let's see how many of our 100 people said Albert Einstein. That answer is incorrect, so it is not a pointless answer. That means you only have one final chance to win today's jackpot. We are looking for people named Person of the Year by Time magazine. This is your last answer. This has to be a pointless answer. Adolf Hitler. We've really got to hope that none of our 100 people said Adolf Hitler. We've also got to hope that Adolf Hitler is a correct answer. I have a hunch that if this is a correct answer, this will be going a long way down. Okay, let's see how many of our 100 people said Adolf Hitler. This for £8,500. Oh, it's correct. Down you go. This for £8,500. Unbelievable. Unfortunately, you didn't manage to find that all-important pointless answer, so you don't win today's jackpot of £8,500. But, oh, you've been amazing contestants, and you do get to take home our pointless trophy.
That's what we came for. That's what we came for.
What you came for. Bad luck, guys. Richard, what should they have gone for?
There were a whole bunch of pointless answers here. A lot of them American, but a lot of big world figures. Let's take a look through a few of them. Queen Elizabeth II won in 1952. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, in 1999. Stalin, he won it twice. Martin Luther King Jr. won in '63. Gandhi won in 1930. And I can't think of a more pointless way to end the series than with Ronald Reagan, who won it in '80 and '83.
So this is the last show in the series, Richard. What have we learned?
Well, we've had, across the series, we've had 38 pointless answers, and I think countless hundreds and hundreds more at home as well. We've learnt that the most pointless country in the world is the Central African Republic, which has now been a pointless answer 5 times. And my 2 favourite wrong answers of the series, when asked to name a Hugh Grant film, Sue gave us 3 Weddings and a Funeral. It scored her 100. And then Corin, who swore blind to us there was a Christmas #1 single by Antichrist. But, guys, a really fitting end to the series, a really great contestants, and I'm sorry it didn't quite come off for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just add to that. Fantastic contestants, really good. I'm so sorry you didn't crown it by winning the jackpot, but you have been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed all the pointless facts along the way. We're back with a new series next year, so until then, it's goodbye from Richard. Goodbye. And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.
If you want to take part in the next series of Pointless, then please contact us through our website at bbc.co.uk/be on a show.
Anne's favourite fodder. A student steps up to her fate in The Weakest Link over on BBC One now. Glass galore next on BBC Two, as Paul Martin recaps on some of the best finds in Flog It. And later at 6, the Quizzicals are hoping to do their thing against the Eggheads.